All right, we're going to begin. Thank you guys for braving the apocalypse of a windstorm that's outside. For joining us today in person, and for those in Zoom, welcome to our second meeting of 2021, Carroll PMC. Today, we've got some dates and some consults, and it's not as spicy as it sounds. Basically, here today, we're here to talk about very important dates regarding just in general being a pre-med if you're a freshman or sophomore or a junior or senior that's not planning on applying in the next year or two. Some important MCAT dates, and we won't harbor on that too much because we spent some time talking about that last week, and we'll have future MCAT sessions, and you'll hear more about that in the future. But just a few important dates that are coming up that you guys should be aware about. And then for those that are applying to go to medical school, matriculate in fall of 2022, because it takes a year to apply to medical school. So when you're going to get started in June or in May of this year, we're going to have some specific dates about that as well. And then the entire last half of the meeting, and I hope we can get through the first part pretty quickly so that we have that whole end of the meeting, are these individual small group consultations in which you guys will be able to discuss your paths, some of the struggles you have, some of the successes you have, and maybe us officers can help you out a little bit. We will also be doing the same thing on Zoom. I'll be taking over that portion, and we'll get more on that later on in the presentation. So today, opening message, COVID report. We're going to begin with general pre-med dates and Helena opportunities here, important MCAT dates, important 2022 application dates. We're going to tell you guys about the next meeting. If you'd like to leave, you can leave, and then we're going to open it up to open consultations with us. So that is the plan for today.
Yeah, and so as we open with every meeting, I guess what I started with last meeting was two questions that we should all ask ourselves, which is why I'm here, and then why should I care about this information? And as Andrew indicated, there are important dates and consults that could help in sharing your own experiences with others and how we can all improve and excel in the pre-medical path. And with that, we're all here to inform each other, excite, empower, and involve each and every one of you guys. And moving along to the COVID-19 community update, since our last meeting, there's been an increase in total cases compared to the recent weeks, with numbers jumping from 92,619 to 94,460 in the state of Montana. County numbers have currently decreased from 53 from our last meeting. The total deaths increased by 48 in the state of Montana, with 2 being reported from Lewis and Clark County. Additionally, for some important information, don't forget to check the email that was sent out, I believe, last Tuesday or last week from Dr. Hokett in regarding the letter of recommendations if you are thinking of applying in this next cycle. Yeah.
Cool. Oh, I can start this. So some of you have probably heard Carroll's doing a COVID vaccine clinic. It'll be out by Nelson Stadium. The nursing students will be giving vaccines, and public health and biology students, or really anyone else, are requested for volunteers. We will be doing like traffic control, handing out paperwork, and then some people will be doing the medical, like 15-minute observation after the vaccinations. The plan is right now, every Thursday and Friday from 1 to 6, so volunteers need to be there at 12. The shifts will be 12 to 3 and 3 to 6. Obviously, there's some like leeway if you need to leave 30 minutes early. If you are interested, please send me an email and I'll compile a list and forward it on to people who get paid a lot more than I do. And then the plan will be to do that every Thursday and Friday, but if we're successful with getting enough volunteers, they want to open it up every day. And then St. Pete's is in desperate need for volunteers for the emergency room, the cancer treatment center, and the nutrition departments. If you're interested in volunteering, just Google St. Peter's Health Volunteering, and there's an entire webpage with who to contact. Benefits of COVID is that orientation is all online now, so you don't have to go and sit in a room for hours on end listening to them talk. You just do it when you have free time. So it's really easier now than ever. to volunteer there.
Yeah, I guess speaking to that, even when I was just the streamlined process of, just because I need more hands-on, when I was recently acquiring a position at St. Peter's, the health streams are online at your own pace within the first 30 days. And additionally, I guess all the TB and all the other paperwork, I guess I finished within that 1 week period. So they're pretty quick about that, and they're pretty good at working with your schedule.
And that's not how it's always been. It's used to
No.
be, you block out an entire day, you miss classes, some professors are angry at you, and you gotta go through at least a day, usually 2. For the scribe job, it was 2. So
Yeah.
this is good.
So this also goes with getting a job there. If you're interested in that, I would look into doing that now, only because when I first started working at St. Pete's, I had to take an entire week off of school to sit through new employee orientation. So.
And when these hospital jobs, like you begin as a volunteer, I used to work with a guy in the quality department who he began as a janitor at St. Peter's. And in about 3 or 4 years, he was head of the quality department there, which that department doesn't exist there anymore. So don't Google that. But he is now moving on to a more high paying job. In general, he's increased along the ladder. And you'll start as a volunteer and you could end up as a tech. Because really, once you're in the hospitals, you get to know people. And it's about networking. Yeah,
and from a non-clinical standpoint, just adding to that, from my own personal experiences, I volunteered at the Helena Food Share. And then when the pandemic hit, they hired me on as a pantry assistant. So really rooting yourself in now as a volunteer or just finding these opportunities can really shine a light and keep them in, or keep your name in their mind when they're looking for people to bring on.
Definitely. The next thing I have up, I'm gonna actually try and pull up, that's still sharing, right? Cool. So the NAAHP, I don't know what that stands for, but pretty much what it is, it's just like a whole host of these summer opportunities for pre-medical students. And this time, like really in December, it should have begun, and January, I guess, but this is the time in which you begin to look for pre-medical opportunities during the summer. And you may think, wow, like COVID's still going on, regulations are still high. There's no way there's going to be things going on. If you go on this website and look at summer opportunities, there's a whole list of all different types of opportunities. What's on there is the Colorado pre-medical program that me and Caleb both did. We did different ones, but that's on there. Mine was a 2-week long thing. We did 1 week of didactics in the emergency department and on their campus. And another week was backpacking where I got wilderness first responder training and certification. So that's all on there. You got to apply. There's a few deadlines on there that's passed, but there's a bunch on there, a bunch of opportunities on there. Go check it out for yourselves. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on there, but really good, interesting, and amazing opportunities to really certify that this is what you want to do. It's pretty neat.
And to add to that, if you guys are interested in summer research, I'm a resource. And if that's something for applications, that's starting to come up. And so just to ease that process, I'm happy to help with that and writing grants and such. So.
And throughout this, if we put in a little blurbs about our personal experiences, take a few notes. And if you want to learn more about that stuff or learn about how you can get engaged in that, ask us in the consultations as well.
I got this. So the last thing is you prep. I don't know if that's how you're supposed to say it. Basically, they offer monthly workshops to underrepresented minority students and any other aspiring future applicants who are interested in pursuing a career in medicine. They offer workshops focusing on topics ranging from the AMCAS application, financial aid, writing a personal statement, MCAT prep, interviews, and others. It's completely free. Their next meeting is Monday, the 15th from 6 to 8 p.m. on Pacific time, so 7 to 9 here on Zoom. I will send out an email with that information, but first year medical students at UW host this. So it seems like a pretty good resource, and they'll be talking about letters of recommendations, and then there will be a panel with medical students and then breakout rooms to ask individualized questions.
Great. And the thing right above it, if you're not already virtually shadowing, we highly recommend it. It's the best thing that places can do right now. It shows that you are consistent. If you at least, some of these actually offer like actual certifications, like little things, like it's worth it. It's worth it right now because it'll show that you were consistent. It'll show that you weren't doing absolutely nothing during this period. And once we shift to in-person shadowing, it'll help. So I would be doing that right now if I wasn't kind of like right towards the end of my pre-med journey, hopefully, right at that interview stage. So definitely do that. And there's a ton of different resources. Check Moodle. That's all I'm gonna say. So the American Medical Student Association, this club used to be known as Carroll AMSA. Basically what this is, it's a student-led national association that exists to cultivate, inspire, and inform medical students. And they have a whole host of different things on their website regarding how they do this. There's all sorts of basically different forms of support on there. There's networks in which you can help to develop professionally. So like different jobs, different internships, and some discounts on like test prep and things like that. You really get a lot of benefits from this thing in medical school. Just like looking through as a medical student, you have a bunch of benefits. Like it has discounts on like UpToDate on there, which is something that medical students and future physicians, I mean, they use all the time. Physicians use UpToDate all the time. But for pre-meds, they offer resources. It's $75 for the full length of your pre-med education. So all your time at Carroll, you pay $75 once and you just get it. The whole host of resources. You can look on the website for more information about that to see if that's something you're interested in. However, when I and the other officials came together to rebrand Carroll AMSA as Carroll PMC, we wanted this club to be disassociated from AMSA because we don't want cost to be a barrier for you to receive what we believe is essential information about being a pre-med. So, but it's here still. It's still there for you guys. Okay, now we're moving on to advice for the 2021 MCAT. And I know I typed most of this, but feel free to jump in, Kayla, at any point. So registration for April, May, and June exam dates for the MCAT for people who are taking it 2021 are February 7th and February 18th. It'll make more sense when you see a map in a bit, but February 18th is for people who are planning to take it in Montana and basically anywhere west of, like anywhere west of like Illinois. I just know there because that's where I'm from. So anything west of like Illinois is the 18th, and you'll see it soon. This is at noon Eastern time. And it's imperative that you log on there right when it begins, and like maybe like 10 or 5 minutes before, just start clicking the register button.
Can I stop you real quick?
On there. Yeah.
So it will open, I don't know the exact date. It may be open now. A few days before this registration occurs for you to pre-register, which is where you type in all of your like demographics. That takes like 10 minutes. And if you pre-register, then on that day when you hit like enter to register, it takes you straight to applying. And so when I did this a few months ago, I pre-registered and then I got on there the second it hit noon or whenever it opened. And then it took me an hour and a half to get through to actually select my date. Joey got in there like 5 minutes after it opened. And I think it took him like 2.5 hours to select his date. Also, there's only 4 people that can test at a time at the Helena Center. So you want to get in that pretty quick.
Yep. And so that same type of structure exists for people who want to take this thing in July, August, or September. You can still apply for the 2022 cycle if you take it in July. But some schools they want your score before they look at your primary. So really look into your schools if that's something you're thinking of doing. And you'll see more information on those dates soon. All rescheduling and cancellation fees for the MCAT will be waived for February to June dates. The June to September dates will be decided on later. And because the double AMC really likes money, they're probably not going to waive those fees. So you can reschedule and cancel fees for any MCAT that you decide to take, and maybe you're like, I don't want to take it, I don't feel prepared, it's stressful, I don't want to take it now. You will get all your money back, provided you do so in a certain timeline. For the June and September dates, it might not be possible for that. So that's just something to take into account. Health and safety protection is in place. We talked a little bit about that last meeting, so I'm not going to go into that stuff. You got to wear a mask. You have to socially distance. There's only a certain amount of people that are allowed in there. So yeah, take that as you may. And because the world's unpredictable, your test might be canceled within
literally the night
with
before.
less than 24-hour notice. It's unfortunate, but that's the circumstances right now. And expect the traditional MCAT length. I took the shortened version of the MCAT because I took it when it was right in the middle of the pandemic and they decided to make it short. Kayla and Joey and all of you will not be so lucky unless they go back to it for some reason. And we'll talk more about this in future meetings. And of course, you can always look at the AAMC.org for information about it. And each one of those days, there's 2 exams. You choose either 7:30 a.m. or 3 p.m. Is it 3:30?
It might be 3:30. I'm not entirely sure. I think one thing to take note of is I knew I wanted a morning exam and I wasn't going to pick the date I did if there weren't morning exams, only because by 3 p.m. my brain is like not there. I liked the early morning. Joey wanted the 3 p.m. and after about 2 weeks into his prep texted me and was like, I wish I was taking the morning one because his test ended at like 11:30 p.m. So just be mindful of that. If you're a night owl, that's great. If you're not, try and get a morning test. That might be hard.
Yeah, definitely. And just keep in mind throughout this entire presentation, all of this information, especially about the MCAT and even about the application cycle, is accurate as of February 4th, 2021. This can all change, and the AAMC is known to change everything. So just, if this concerns you, really be attentive on Twitter, on email, whatever medium you use to follow them. And scores will be reported within a 30 to 35 day window. Kayla and Joey got it within 2 weeks, right?
Our scores are released on the 9th, on Tuesday.
Okay,
so like 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks, but that's not for the future dates that are coming up now. They're going back to their standard 30 to 35 day window. That was great because I had that too for mine and it was brutal. But yeah, I think I had mine. I don't know. This is the map I was telling you guys about. So I guess Indiana, everything west of Indiana, pretty much. All that blue is the 18th. All of the purple is on the 17th. That registration opens 12 o'clock Eastern time. Just letting you guys know, this is all on the AAMC website. These are the dates. So I know it's probably hard for you to see, but all of these blue boxes are test dates. Look familiar, Karen? Yep. But nothing in February. We got some dates, March, April, May. If you want those dates, you register coming up pretty soon, the date I mentioned earlier.
April, May, June.
Yep. And then June, July, August, September, all these are right here. And yes, sorry, April, May, June. Yeah. So those are the dates, again, on the AAMC website. And this is just a easy diagram of registering for your MCAT exam. They give you more information about this on the website. And if you need help, like personally, just, email us, contact us. We'll help you as much as we can, but just be prepared. Yeah.
One thing to add to that is if you're planning to apply in May or June or whatever, you'll want to take your MCAT probably in April. May, June, okay. But you'll likely want your score back and have enough time to retake it shall you need to. Another thing to note is if you're not applying this year in May, don't take the MCAT this year because MCAT scores are only good for like 3 years for most schools. So if you were to take it this year, but you're not applying until next year, you've already wasted a year of what might be a perfectly good score.
I think with anything, it's based off your personal situation and speaking with Wes Feist about it, who's got a pretty good amount of background in this. Look into that if it concerns you. If it doesn't concern you, congrats, just keep doing your pre-med thing. Or if you've gotten past that point and you're considering applying, you know what? Oh, I thought the slide was somewhere else, but well, we won't get to applying first. Kayla, do you want to talk about MAPT really quick?
So MAPT is a tool that just came out this summer. I got it. It's suggested for anyone that's like before they're applying. So like Andrew should not get MAPT. He's already applied, but like freshman year and on. Basically, here I can show you this demo page. It's great. So it like tracks your GPAs. And so upward trends are important, right? And so you can like erase it. So if you just want to look at people's your semester trends, like this student, these are not my stats. This is a demo. The student had a little dip down here and then he has this nice upward trend. So that's what's important. You can look at science only. Same goes with activities. So this is just the dashboard. You can see how you're doing with your prereqs and your MCAT scores. Again, you can just look at certain sections or whatever. So that's super nice. You can track all your practice tests that you take. Your courses, you go in here and put all these in and it will calculate your science, math, GPAs. And so that's also a different calculation for AMCAS versus DO versus Texas. So every school looks at your stuff differently, or school system. You can look at your activities. So this is where you can start looking at hours. You can put people's contact infos in here, and then you can start journaling. And so journaling is super important. So when you go to write your personal statement in your activities section, you have all these things to look back on because our brains are not filled with that great of information. You can track your MCAT scores in here. So what practice company you took it from and what your individual breakdowns were. There's a new feedback section. And so right now it's just kind of notifications, but eventually it will get to a point where they'll say things like, hey, your science GPA is a little low. It's under a 2.0 or under a 3.0. You might want to consider doing a post-bac or a master's program to get that up. And then you can add your advisors to this. And so I'll work on getting Wes set up with it, but that way your advisors can see your dashboard and all of this stuff. You save your contacts, so physicians, professors, whatever. And then you can also start working on your application. So let me see. So you can go into your essays and it will tell you what you need to do because these prompts aren't actually open, and then you can start a draft of your personal statement. So when the service opens to submit, you just copy and paste your personal draft. So, there's some other things. You can also start making your med school list, which has a bunch of information. So I strongly recommend math. I think I want to say $60 a year. I've found it pretty helpful. I got it in August when it opened, and it really just became a good spot for me to enter all my information and kind of see if there's weak areas or something I'm missing. And it was really nice to be able to visualize my GPA graph and all of that. So that's mapped in a nutshell, but if you have questions about that, let me know.
Sweet, thank you. Okay, so if you're applying for the 2022 cycle to medical school, I'm going to be speaking mostly about MD schools. A compass follows the same general skeleton of a structure, but they're a little bit different because DO schools, you use a COMAS, which is the thing on the bottom. So if you always hear us talking about a COMAS, that's for if you're applying DO, if you're going to be a doctor of osteopathic medicine. To apply MD, you use the AAMC's American Medical College Application Service, that's AMCAS, which opens in May. And that's what I'll be speaking most about. If you have a desire, or if you have roots in Texas, decide to apply MD or DO to any public and some private medical schools in Texas, there's a separate application service called TMDSAS.
Everything's different for that application service.
Yeah, it's a little different. Yeah, I actually applied to it in my primaries, but I didn't actually apply through any of my secondaries because I didn't have time, and it just wasn't worth it. But the good thing about that, I know it's probably like, oh my God, you dropped so much money on it, but it's a one cost for as many schools as you want. That's why I decided to not do the secondaries. Plus it was like October. So for the 2022 application for AMCAS, for MD schools, if eligible, apply for FAP, which is the Federal Assistance Program. There are certain requirements to be considered for this. It will help you with the process because this process is very expensive. So please look on that website for more information. I don't have a lot of information about that. Look online for it. Maybe Wes could help you out with that as well. Check and review your background for prior arrests or any institutional actions to ensure that you can actually apply to medical school. It would suck to go through this whole process and then learn that something in your background is going to prevent you from going any further. So that's something to consider. Begin pre-writing your activities. So mapped would come in great here. It's a great section which it'll outline for AMCAS. It's 15 activities maximum that you can put in for. 3 of them you can consider as your best favorite activities, and you get an additional amount of characters to write about them. So you can pre-write this in Excel doc. You could pre-write it in mapped, whatever you'd like, or Word doc, whatever you'd like. Begin writing your personal statement as well. Same thing with that. Continue requesting faculty letters or recommendation and get in contact with Dr. Hokett. Kayla mentioned stuff about that in last meeting. If you want more information about that, speak to Kayla about that for sure, but speak to us in general. And continue crafting your school list as well. This is something I wish I spent a little bit more time on, but continue. You should at this point maybe be like have a couple schools that you dream about or like you follow on Facebook or something like that. But continue crafting it. Look at the details. Don't get too fed up on the GPA and MCAT. Look to see if like it's a fit for you. If, wow, I'd really like to be a part of that program because it services the Latino community. And that's something I want to do. I want to be bilingual. So look into that.
On the schools list, I mean, while GPA and MCAT are important, you need to remember they list averages, and averages don't tell you anything really. So even if their average stats are way higher than yours, but their mission really fits with yours, that doesn't mean it's out. While crafting my school list, I've been looking at their mission statements, their vision statements, and their out of state, like how many students they have from out of state, because if they only accept 5% of out of state students, I'm probably not going to waste my money applying there.
Yeah, two things for those who are considering applying to public schools that are out of state. Really look at the percentage of out-of-staters that they accept, because usually that's considered like almost like suicide to apply to like public schools that are out of state. You really don't have a shot in getting in, unfortunately, unless you are like a perfect fit in the institution or you have like you have ties to the location. Like I applied to University of Washington. I don't have Washington ties. Yeah, well, yeah.
I wouldn't suggest applying to UW because if you're not a WWAMI student, because they only save like 10 seats for out-of-state students. So unless you are stellar, yes.
What if you live in Washington, but like you're coming here out of state? Are you still considered out of state for med school?
No. So if you usually residency from what I've understood is where you graduated high school and where you consider residing. So I wouldn't change your driver's license or anything like that. Stick with your parents. Washington's your state, but also with UW and WWAMI, you would still be considered technically in state if you were a Montana resident. The only difference is you go to medical school at a satellite campus in Bozeman versus in Seattle. And then same with all the other states, it would be in wherever their schools are.
If you guys have questions about WWAMI, I'm currently talking with some staff that are involved with the program, and I'm fighting for them to come here and speak about it, or at least virtually. So just know that that's a resource I hope you guys will have at some point. So I know a lot of you are from Montana and the surrounding states. Okay. Yep, submit early and with or without the MCAT. This cycle I was able to get away with. Well, I submitted after the MCAT, but shortly after I took my MCAT. This cycle, I'm not so sure. It's really just about your personal situation. Again, do not rush this thing. Do not sacrifice quality of medical school applications just to get it in early, because you will just be rejected earlier. So really don't sacrifice quality. And by the way, what Kayla was stating about average GPAs and MCATs, don't let that keep you away from medical institutions. Statistics applied to populations, not individuals. Your personal story will get you into medical school quicker than any GPA or MCAT would. Yeah. Okay. So it takes 6 or more weeks for your primary application to be processed and verified. This is why why you need to apply as early as possible, preferably June 1st, if you can. This is a rolling admissions process. So your applications are going to just pool up, and then it's like an hourglass, and the AMCAS and all sorts of any other application service is going to have to sift through each one of them, process them. You might have to fix a few things on them. I had to go through one cycle of fixing it. But once you apply and press that button, you are locked into your place and you won't lose that. That could be a really good thing if you apply early. It could be a really horrible thing too if you apply late. Yes, so begin prepping for your secondary applications. You can do this. There's a bunch of different websites. Ryan Gray is an excellent website in which he has all the secondary essays from previous years of medical schools that they've asked on certain application services. He's got them all listed, all the prompts. I started writing them in this huge Google Doc. By the time my secondaries rolled in, I was able to get 4 schools sent in within the first week. And it looks really good to send in your secondaries almost as soon as schools request it from you. Unfortunately, schools like to send them all the requests to you like at once. And so it's hard because, again, you don't want to sacrifice quality for submitting earlier. Take the Casper test and or double AMC situational judgment test. This, I took it in July. You can look at the Casper test for more information about it, or you could speak to me afterward. It's a situational judgment test. Hey, you have like a friend. A friend is like arguing with their spouse, and they need a place to crash. What do you do in the situation, or something like that? It's silly. You don't even get to see your results for it, so you can't stress out about it. Any results really. Only the schools get it. It's weird. Some schools require you to take the situational judgment test as well. Some schools may also require you to take a bunch of other things like VITA and stuff, but don't worry about that if you don't have to. But just some things to keep on your radar. But yeah, this is the typical timeline. This is again, it's an average timeline. This does not apply to everyone, especially during a global pandemic. But the general gist of it is MCAT applications, secondary applications, interviews, and then admissions. MSAR, if you saw it on an earlier slide and wondering what the hell is that, it's medical school admissions requirements. It's basically just this big website. It's got all medical schools on there, and pretty much all it has is just a bunch of information about it, average GPA and MCAT scores, but I mean, locations, classifications as public or private. That's very important if you're applying out of state. It's a 1 year or 2 year subscriptions to it. It's all virtual, by the way, no paper documents. Virtual for 1 year is $28. Virtual for 2 years is $36. So
The nice thing about the MSAR is you can put in like your GPA and your MCAT score, and then you can set like boundaries. Like for example, if you have a 500 MCAT score, unless you really love a certain school, you probably shouldn't apply to a school that has an average 524 MCAT school. I don't think any do, but like, you might want to filter that out a little bit. But you can also search it by like rural, city, big academic medical center, like all these things that might matter to you. And this is just for MD schools. DO schools have a similar one. It's called DO Explorer or Explore DO, and theirs is free. So
that's nice, yeah. But thank you for adding that. Yeah, a lot of the DO schools have similar things to the MD schools. Yes.
Is that website like better than US News or just more in depth? It's like US News has similar rankings and stuff like that.
So I don't think MSAR really ranks the schools based on like the best schools. I think it's more so when you're creating your school list, you can start looking for all the schools, and it has like their average GPA, MCATs, mission statements, all of those types of things. So it's more just a resource for you, if that makes sense.
Okay, Kayla, you want to?
Yeah, so this is Joey's idea. He unfortunately couldn't be with us tonight, but he really wants to make an MCAT study group. And so this would be open to any student at Carroll, obviously. The time frame would be to be determined. He's thinking 3 to 4 sessions a month, so maybe once a week. Students would present to other students high yield and low yield topics as designated by the AMSA. And then they're compiled into a pool to select from. So for example, like I said last week, thought I was pretty good at cars. And so cars can be really challenging for people, but it's just getting the strategy. So if I did this, I would probably teach a section on like, we'd all go through a cars passage and go through how to go through all of that stuff correctly. It would be followed by a discussion. And so it would last approximately an hour. It would be completely voluntary with a sign up sheet. And then you can also volunteer to present certain topics, super informal, just like think of it as like a study group. And Joey's quote is, "One repays a teacher badly if one always remains a student." So also one thing that's really important is with the MCAT especially, you learn way better from teaching a topic. So even if you're not 100% on knowing this topic, there's enough people there that will be like, oh, I think you mix those two up. But I've always found it that I learn better if I teach someone how to do something.
Our next meeting is a guest speaker. We are going to have him on Zoom. So if you guys would like to Zoom in, that's perfectly fine. We'll still be here in person. And afterwards, if you have any questions for him, you can ask them here, or if you have any questions for us, you can ask as well. But Dr. Colin McInnes is an alum. He was a biology major at Carroll. He is an ophthalmologist currently practicing in Bozeman, and he's got subspecialties in cataract surgery and glaucoma as well. Yeah, he's a pretty interesting guy. And yeah, we look forward to having him here. So if you have any questions for him or for the field of ophthalmology or anything like that, definitely in general, just like taking the MCAT and applying and stuff like that, bring them with you. So that's going to end the information process or part of this meeting. If you have any questions about that, this is the time for you to ask questions. And we highly recommend you guys to stay for this and ask any questions. I'm here for the next 20 minutes, but also for a good half hour afterward if you really want. And so we highly recommend you stay. And yeah, although our paths might be quite different, they're along the same trajectory. We're aiming for what you guys are, in a sense. So how this is going to work is probably not like the slide says, because we've had some just changes in people who are here. And so what we'll probably do is we're going to split you guys up into groups of, or not groups of three groups of however many that is. And I'm going to have the 3 officers here currently, Michael, Kayla, and Roman, head those sessions. I'm going to take the laptop and go to a quieter room and speak with anyone on Zoom if they have questions as well. And yeah, as part of an icebreaker, you can provide your name and your year. We'll go through it first. Provide your name and your year. Explain or try and summarize your medical interests in just one sentence. Just one sentence, hit it home. And then 1 true statement and 1 false statement about you. Then in the group, you guys can decipher what is true and what is false about you. It's a little bit of an icebreaker. And then once that is done, ask away, ask questions, speak about whatever you want. This is a judgment-free zone. We will give it to you straight. We will stop recording the meeting at this point. So it's off the record.